Hey there folks, and welcome to the Abzan Pile deck. If you want to see how the deck does, gameplay is linked down in the description, and deck tech is coming right up. If you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. We do a new deck every single week with gameplay throughout the week. And with that, let's get into the deck tech. Okay, so what's pile? Pile of good stuff. That's basically it. It's a good stuff deck, as others like to say. I was brought up in Magic understanding it as pile, so that's where that goes. Anyways, with that, so the idea is get some good stuff out and interact, so on. So 3 fatal push, I hear they're good, and for 1 black instant, destroy a creature if its convert mana costs 2 or less with revolt. 4 or less, we can activate revolt with intermittently. So that's the thing. We got 3 Blessed Alliance here, 1 in a white instant with Escalate, and you can choose any of the modes. All 3 are relevant in this deck. Target player gains 4 life, untap up to 2 target creatures, and target opponent sacrifices an attacking creature. So this is just meant to get the tricky things. Also, 2 mana removal, right? So that's the thing. So we can untap our creatures and block. We can get rid of one of their things, and we can also gain the life that'll keep us in the game, that kind of thing. Deal with aggro-y stuff, you know, just have the aggro-y answers in the early game. Anyways, next up, Grapple with the Past. 1 in green instant, put the top 3 cards of your library in your graveyard, then you can return a creature or land from your graveyard to your hand. That can get things like maybe our land count is not so great at the beginning, and we have an Evolving Wilds as one of those targets. We can go grab the Evolving Wilds, or maybe we just need to make land drop anyway, and we don't have that option. We can hunt through the top 3 cards for a land, and then, you know, by our next turn is 4 cards deep. Hopefully we have a land by then. We can make our land drops as appropriate. Also, we can bring back things like Nissa if we need to. If we need to recycle, like we can throw Nissa out there, get the card draw, force them to attack that target in, you know, make trades, all that kind of stuff, and then just simply bring her back. So that's one of those options. We force them to expend their resources and then just return her. Moving on, we have Declaration in Stone. So for 1 in a white sorcery, exile target creature and all creatures with the same name. They get a clue for each non-token creature. So we can clear clues easily or get rid of really oppressive stuff. Or if it's the only removal in hand, then we'll just use it as is. Then we have Nissa Vastwood Seer, 2 in a green, legendary elf, 2/2. And when it enters the battlefield, if we have 7 or more lands, then we get to flip it to Nissa Sage Animus. Also, when it enters the battlefield, we get to search for a forest so that we can make that happen. And so she turns into a 3 loyalty Planeswalker, +1, reveals the top card. If it's land, it goes into play. If not, it goes into our hand. -2 makes a 4/4 elemental legendary to block if we need to. If we feel that's our best solution, or if we need to be on beatdown, that's entirely possible. We're on the beatdown, we just need to get some extra damage to really secure a victory. Sure, make the 4/4. And then the -7, untap up to 6 target lands to become 6/6 elementals, and they're still lands. We have multiple Nissas in here, so we may not go into that route, but we'll see where that goes. Next up is Tireless Tracker for 2 in a green, 3/2. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, investigate, putting a clue in, and whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on the tracker. This is basically one of our card draw options. You know, like card draw, you get the point. We needed card draw options, and I went with green's card draw amongst a few. Then we have 1 copy of Reclamation Sage, so 2/1 for 2 in a green, and when it enters the battlefield, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. We can get multiple uses out of it with Grapple of the Past. That is a thing. So if we're going versus artifact heavy, we can play that particular game, and we can draw into it at relative pace. I mean, we have other answers for things, but we could draw into that. Next up, 2 copies of Cannibal Constable Allocation for 1 white and a black 2/3 legendary, and whenever opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That keeps us into the game. Maybe their removal is going to be focused on Campbell rather than something that they should be taking out, and it pretty much makes an uncomfortable situation where Campbell really locks them out of what they really need. You know, just making things a little tougher on our opponent. Campbell is a great turn 3 drop to really just complicate matters And that's exactly what he's here for, is just complicating things so that the opponent has to really think about what they're going to do, because they just can't use their removal willy-nilly without actually considering the consequences. Because if we gain a bunch of life, we're in the game longer, and more draws is very good for us. And also, if their life total is lower, it requires less for us to finish them off. And then Gift of Paradise for 2 and a green enchantment, and it enchants a land. Whenever it enters the battlefield, we gain 3 life, and it makes enchanted land have the ability to tap and add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. So, it's kind of a ramp spell, but it's also the life gain that we need to keep us in the game, and since we're 3 color, it just makes things a little more possible, also getting to our 5 drops that will be down the road, so we can have 5 drops on turn 4 if that's possible to do. Next up is Pulse of Murasa for 2 and a green instant. Return target creature or land card from graveyard to its owner's hand, and you gain 6 life. So, more life gain. We've noticed a lot of life gain. There's no life gain theme in here. It's life gain is incidental. And as it's incidental, it just keeps us in the game that much longer. We can pull back lands, like, say, we can pulse back for a Evolving Wilds for Tireless Tracker, for example. We can pulse back our Nissa. We can do a lot of graveyard recursion. So that our few threats that we have, and as you can see, we have 9 creatures. The few threats that we have are going to just keep coming back. So whatever we have, we just reuse and just make it tougher and tougher. So we keep bringing back a tracker, so whenever they remove it, so that we can just keep getting that card advantage. We keep bringing back Nissa for the same reason. Keep bringing back Cabal so we can shut down their stuff after they've decided to invest their removal. That kind of thing. And then moving on, we have 2 copies of Anguish and Unmaking for 1 and white and a black instant. Exile target non-land permanent, and you lose 3 life. So just the catch-all card at instant speed is what we're after here. And to get rid of really problematic stuff, if we don't see our Reclamation Sage, or if we see Planeswalkers on the other side, or problematic vehicles and we don't have our other removal, our sorcery speed removal is not going to catch vehicles so easily. So that's another example. And then we have Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. She's in here for one reason. She's annoying on turn 3 on the play. Kind of like Liliana, but I find that Nissa just kind of sits there and they're constantly trying to whack at her, and it just leads to the later turns of a Languish and so on and so forth. Just give us all the free time we want. So, for 2 green and a colorless is a 3 loyalty Planeswalker, and the +1 put a 0/1 plant creature token on the battlefield, which will just keep locking people out. And then the -2 puts +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I've had some very favorable scenarios with that. I believe I've had a game with Sky Sovereign where they could take out my Campbell. They were trying to take out my Campbell. They take out the Nissa or something like that. They take out one of my Nissas. And I put out this Nissa, put the counters, get them on the Campbell that's out there that they didn't target. And it's just like, okay, play your non-creature stuff. Play your removal. Try it. And so, she's expendable because more Nissas and because legend rule and all that in duels. So that works. So yeah, the -2 +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, that just bumps everything up just a hair. And, with all the amount of creatures we're running, that's an effective anthem because we're probably not going to see more. -7, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of lands you control. Doubtful we'll get that far. Like I said, we have multiple Nissas, so we invest in them. And +1's -2 is probably more likely to happen than aiming for a -7, because the Planeswalker removal is in every deck, and we're not going to expect it to stick around. So we're going to use it for what we need at the time and not expect it to survive a turn later. Then we have Woodland Wanderer. So for 3 and a green, 2/2, Vigilance Trample, and it has Converge, and it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each color of mana spent to cast on it. We are a 3-color deck. We also have Gift of Paradise to create that 4th color, so we can make a 6/6 Woodland Wanderer, no problem, while ramping and so on. Well, that ramp would be a 4-drop on turn 4 with the ramp, which is unfortunate, but a 6/6 turn 4 Vigilant Trample, it's good too. So it's worth it. Then we have 3 copies of Cast Out for 3 colorless and a white enchantment with Flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Cast Out leaves the battlefield. So that's just another catch-all, but it's a temporary catch-all, so we got to consider things that we're putting under. So enter the battlefield stuff if we feel that they might have the removal. If we have a choice, we'll put something appropriate under it. You know, the lesser threat if we have multiple options. And it also has cycling for a white if we feel that it's not appropriate to the match. Drago being a good example where we just need to draw into more threats rather than worry about theirs. And then moving on, we have 2 copies of Languish. So for 2 colorless and 2 blacks. Sorcery, all creatures get -4/-4 till end of turn. That's just our board wipe. 2 seems appropriate for the deck in general. You could probably boost it up if you wish. And then we have Ishkan, a Graph Widow, so for 4 and a green, 3/5 with Reach. Also has Delirium effect, and when it enters the battlefield, if there's 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, we get to put 3/1/2 Spider tokens with Reach on the battlefield, making it a very wide board state instantly if we need it to be. And also we can pay 6 and a black, and target opponent loses 1 life for each Spider you control. Since she makes combat a little more difficult, and we can throw scenarios like Ishkana thrown in with Nissa Minus to make things even more difficult. And that makes very, very tough combat. And maybe they'll skip their attack and we can just simply start draining them at end of turns, sort of thing. And just keep dropping their life total and not worry about it while we have this massive wall. Then moving on, we have Omnixilis Reignited for 3 colorless, 2 black, 5 loyalty planeswalker. +1, you draw a card and lose a life. -3, destroy a creature. And -8, when a target opponent gets an emblem with whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. You may notice that we're probably running, I don't know, 15 threats thereabouts in the deck, and then the rest is removal. That's basically how it's going here. So most of the cards are cards that are intended to win in their own right, or Nissa's mostly support in this case. Yeah, she's all support, and this Nissa back here's card draw. Campbell will win a game on his own, for example. Tireless Tracker has the potential to win a game on its own. You get the point. Everything's kind of set up to win a game on its own for the most part. Speaking of which, Nissa Vital Force for 3 and double green, 5 loyalty planeswalker. +1 untaps a land we control, and until our next turn, it becomes a 5/5 elemental creature with haste while still a land. So this can deal with board wipes and cast outs and so on like that, so that elemental is actually a little harder to get rid of than you thought. Although it does get susceptible to Fatal Push, so that is a thing. With a deck like this, a lot of times, unless I can see the victory right away, I'm usually going to emblem it and secure a victory just by card draw alone. So that's usually it. -3, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If there is a permanent that we need this turn no matter what, then yes, we can absolutely fire that off. And then the -6 is you get an emblem with whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. So basic lands will work. The Evolving Wilds is amazing for it, because then it's like, okay, you get the land, you draw a card, you fetch for another land, you draw another card, and also you can fetch for that land in response to the first card, so you can at least thin an extra land out of the process and draw 2 more. Not that that's highly relevant, but it is a thing that is possible. And then finally our non-land cards, Sorin Grim Nemesis for 4, a white and a black, 6 loyalty planeswalker. This +1, reveal the top card of your library, put that card in your hand, each opponent loses life equal to its converted mana cost. He's card draw. That's how he works. I try to have as many card draw options, because a lot of times I find I'm down to 1 card more often than not with this deck. Don't know why, it just is, but I'm loaded it up with card draw just to pull that off, so that we can get an extra card when the dust settles and we might have a little breathing room. Because some decks are a little aggressive, we want to be able to cover that scenario. So outdrawing, very good. So that's one of those things. The -X, Sorin deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. So indeed, that's just That's a good way to snipe off planeswalkers. It's also a good way to make sure that you stay alive if, well, Sorin's at the top of the curve. So your life total is probably at the lowest it's going to be at that particular game, so that drain is very good. And then the -9, probably a trap in any way, because everyone runs board wipes in their aggro decks now, so, I mean, that's a thing. So put a number of 1/1 black vampire tokens in with lifelink on the battlefield equal to the highest total life total among players. So that will generally never happen because the +1's usually going to kill an opponent all on your own, and the card draw you can draw into more impactful things, of course, and just keep the train going. So our lands, we are running 24 of them, despite having 6 and 5 drops all over the place here. Like I said, we've got some ramp down at 3, so we just need to get to 3 most often, and then things tend to go off from there. That's where our threats start, and we can usually feel comfortable at 3 for a short time if we're missing land drops. So we got 4 plains, 4 swamps, and 6 forests, 6 gating on that. These are relatively balanced, and we don't need too much in the early game, but we are set up so that that will happen anyway. We've got 2 Hissing Quagmires. I chose these over Shambling Vent because I like Death Touch. I like Death Touch. We have plenty of life gain in the deck, so the Death Touch feels relevant here. So, yeah, for a black and a green, we can convert it into a 2/2 black and green with Death Touch. And it's still land, and it still works. Still works. It'll kill off something that's threatening you. It's just yet another option to kill off something. Then we've got 2 Woodland Cemeteries, 2 Sun Petal Groves, and 4 Evolving Wilds to round it out. And with that, that is the deck. And when I say it's a good stuff deck, keep in mind, this goes to everyone's playstyle. Abzan has a lot of good cards. A lot. And you can really pick whichever Abzan deck you like. Because there were other things I was tempted to put in. I was tempted to put in the Stake, for example, for the few counters that were available in the deck, and probably adding 1 or 2 things beyond that. Like we could have it for Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, and the Tireless Trackers. And snakes are just good creatures in their own right, even without that. Plus we have Woodland Wanderer as another option. So that is one thing that I was highly considering. There's also the fact that we can animate lands, and I considered Sylvan Advocate. That's something you can put in for if you like. There's lots and lots of options if you want for this deck, and you can go any number of ways, and I always suggest go with your preference. Make it to your playstyle so you're comfortable with the cards. This is just the template that works for me. With that, hope you guys enjoyed. Gameplay is linked down in the description, and hope you enjoyed. Take care. Bye-bye.